The courtroom revelation. The courthouse buzzed with an anxious energy, the kind that lingers in the air, making each breath feel heavy and loaded with expectation. It was an unusual day, even for Noah, a 9-year-old boy who had already seen more than his fair share of unusual. Today, he sat on a hard wooden bench beside Jenna and Michael, his foster parents. His small, restless hands fidgeted in his lap, the polished surface of the bench feeling colder and harder than ever before. Jenna leaned down and whispered, her voice as soft and comforting as his favorite blanket. "It's going to be okay, sweetie." Noah nodded, though the butterflies in his stomach were relentless. He glanced over at Michael, who gave him a reassuring wink, as if he had the magical ability to sense exactly when Noah needed encouragement. The courtroom around them felt like something out of an ancient story. High ceilings, dark wooden panels, and an air of authority that made Noah feel both intimidated and inspired. This was the day that could change everything. It was the day that could make Jenna and Michael his forever family. Suddenly, the doors swung open, and a man in a long black robe entered, his presence commanding the attention of everyone in the room. Noah's heart raced, a mixture of excitement and fear bubbling up within him. He glanced at Jenna and Michael, noting their hopeful, nervous glances. They had been his foster parents for almost 2 years, and in that time, they had become his world. He yearned for the day he could call them Mom and Dad without hesitation or fear that it would be taken away. "All rise," came a voice from the front, and Noah felt Jenna's gentle hand guide him to stand. His legs trembled slightly as he rose, and he realized the weight of the moment pressing down on his young shoulders. This wasn't just a hearing. It was the culmination of every bedtime story, every scraped knee tended to, every moment of comfort and safety he had felt with Jenna and Michael. As the judge settled into his chair, a strange sensation bubbled up within Noah. It wasn't fear or excitement, but something else, something that made him feel he had to say something, to let his voice be heard in this grand, intimidating room. He glanced over at his foster parents, who gave him encouraging smiles. Their expressions reflected pride, love, and perhaps a hint of concern. When the judge began to speak, his words were drowned out by the thudding of Noah's heartbeat. He knew this was it, the moment that would decide everything. Suddenly, before he knew what he was doing, Noah leaped to his feet, the sound of his chair scraping against the polished floor echoing through the silent room. All heads turned to him in shock and confusion. "Wait!" Noah cried out, his voice trembling yet filled with determination. The judge raised an eyebrow, surprised but intrigued, and gestured for him to continue. Taking a deep breath, Noah steadied himself, feeling the gazes of everyone in the room, including Jenna and Michael. Their faces showed a mix of concern and support, but Noah knew he had to say what was in his heart. "Your Honor," he began, his voice carrying a weight far beyond his years, "I have something to say about my foster parents." A murmur rippled through the courtroom, but the judge raised a hand to silence the audience, his gaze never leaving Noah. "Go ahead, son." Noah took a shaky breath, his small hands clenching at his sides. "Jenna and Michael, they're the best parents ever. They've given me love and a home, and they've always treated me like their own son." His voice grew steadier as he continued, his words resonating with the raw sincerity of a child's heart. "But there's something I need everyone to know, something that makes this different." Jenna's face softened, and Michael's hand tightened on the edge of the bench as they listened, understanding dawning on them. Noah glanced around, feeling the tension in the room, the eyes of strangers, curious and judgmental, fixed on him. "Before I came to live with them, I didn't have a family. I was in a place where nobody cared about me," Noah said, his voice wavering slightly as he recalled the painful memories. He turned to the judge, his gaze intense and filled with an emotion he could barely name. "Jenna and Michael, they saved me. They love me. And they've taught me that family isn't about skin color or how people look. It's about love and caring." The judge's face softened, his eyes reflecting a mixture of surprise and admiration, as he watched this brave young boy stand up and speak his truth. Noah felt a swell of courage as he continued. Some people think Jenna and Michael shouldn't be my parents because I'm black, and they're not. But love doesn't see that. I just want to be a part of their family. The courtroom fell silent. The raw power of Noah's words had rendered everyone speechless. Jenna's eyes shimmered with tears, and Michael's jaw tightened, his hand reaching out to gently touch Noah's shoulder. The judge cleared his throat, his voice thick with emotion. "Thank you, Noah. That took a great deal of courage," he said, his gaze unwavering. "And it's important for us to listen to the voices of those most affected by these decisions." Noah sat back down, feeling a strange sense of relief wash over him. He had spoken his truth, and though he didn't know what the outcome would be, he felt a weight lift from his chest. He glanced at Jenna and Michael, who both gave him proud, loving smiles. Whatever happened next, he knew he wasn't alone. A tidal wave of emotion. The courtroom grew tense, with a silence so thick it seemed almost tangible. Noah, barely able to sit still, felt his pulse hammering in his ears. He cast a nervous glance at Jenna and Michael, his foster parents, his heart twisting at the sight of their stricken expressions. He hadn't expected anyone to challenge their right to be his family, especially after everything they shared. For Noah, Jenna and Michael were more than just foster parents. They were his protectors, his friends, his home. Ms. Thompson, his caseworker, stood there, trying to respond to the man's cold, analytical words. "Your Honor," she began, addressing the judge. "While it's true that Noah and his foster parents come from different cultural backgrounds, the bond they share transcends any physical differences. The stability and love that Jenna and Michael have provided Noah with, it's something that goes far beyond the surface." The man, dressed impeccably in a sharp suit that seemed to reflect his rigid demeanor, cleared his throat and shook his head slightly, his expression still unyielding. "Love is, of course, important," he conceded with a faintly dismissive tone, "but we must also consider the broader implications of identity, culture, and heritage. Noah deserves to be in an environment that honors his roots, his background." His gaze swept over Noah and his foster parents with a hint of skepticism, as if love alone was not enough to bind them as a family. Noah felt his hands tighten into fists, his nails digging into his palms. How could this man, this stranger, speak as if he knew him, as if he understood his life, his struggles, and his hopes? He glanced at Jenna and Michael, who were sitting silently, their faces a mixture of pride and quiet defiance. Jenna's eyes shimmered with unshed tears, while Michael's expression was resolute, his jaw set with a determination that reassured Noah. The judge leaned forward, his gaze thoughtful. "Mr. Harding," he addressed the man in the suit, "while I understand the concerns you're presenting, we also cannot disregard the unique bond that has been formed here. A child's best interests include not only cultural identity, but also stability, love, and a sense of belonging." Mr. Harding, undeterred, pressed on. "Your Honor, I'm not disputing the genuine bond Noah feels with his foster parents, but we must also acknowledge the potential challenges that might arise in the future. A child placed in a culturally unfamiliar environment can face issues of identity confusion, isolation, and later in life, resentment for having been removed from his heritage." Jenna, who had remained silent until this point, finally spoke up, her voice both trembling and strong. "Your Honor, with all due respect," she began, her words directed as much to the judge as to Mr. Harding, "we have done everything in our power to make sure Noah feels connected to his heritage. We've attended cultural events, connected him with role models, and encouraged him to learn about his background. We may not look like him, but we have worked to ensure he feels valued and celebrated for exactly who he is." Michael nodded in agreement, his hand resting protectively on Noah's shoulder. "We understand the importance of heritage," he added, his voice deep with conviction. "We're not pretending that it isn't part of who Noah is. But our love for him goes beyond what anyone can see on the outside. It's about giving him a family, a place where he belongs, regardless of any differences." The judge nodded thoughtfully, but the atmosphere remained tense. The courtroom was now a battleground of principles, love and family against tradition and societal expectations. Noah glanced at the faces around him, at the rows of strangers watching this intimate struggle unfold. He felt their eyes on him, some warm and empathetic, others cold and judging. He had never felt more vulnerable and more determined. Sensing his distress, Jenna took Noah's hand in hers, giving it a reassuring squeeze. Her eyes met his, and in that brief moment, a silent promise passed between them, that no matter what happened, they were in this together. Noah took a deep breath, feeling a renewed sense of courage flooding through him. He couldn't let these strangers, people who knew nothing about him or his life, tear apart the family he had finally found. The judge leaned forward, his expression softening as he looked directly at Noah. "Noah," he said gently, "you've already shown great bravery today by speaking up. But I want to ask you something directly, if that's all right." Noah swallowed, nodding slowly, though his heart beat wildly at the thought of being asked to speak again. "Yes, Your Honor," he replied, his voice a whisper in the stillness. The judge's gaze was kind, encouraging. "Noah, how do you feel about this? About Jenna and Michael? About being with them? I want to hear from you, in your own words, what this family means to you." A wave of emotion rose within Noah. He felt his throat tighten, but he knew he had to be honest, to lay his heart bare. He took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts before he spoke. "Your Honor, Jenna and Michael, they're my family. They're not just people who take care of me. They're my mom and dad, even if it's not on paper yet. They make me feel safe, they make me feel loved, and they've given me a home." He paused, his voice breaking slightly. "I know I'm different from them. I see it every day, but I don't feel different. They never make me feel like I'm less or that I don't belong. They talk to me about where I come from, and they make sure I feel proud of who I am. I just want to stay with them. They're my family, no matter what anyone says." A murmur of sympathy spread through the courtroom. Noah glanced at the judge, who looked visibly moved by his words. For the first time, Noah felt as if his voice had power, as if he could make people understand his truth. The judge leaned back, a pensive look in his eyes as he observed Noah's foster parents. "This is not a decision to be taken lightly," he said slowly, his tone heavy with responsibility. "But I can't ignore the bond that is evident here, nor can I disregard Noah's feelings and experiences. Mr. Harding, I respect your arguments, but we are talking about a child's life, a child's happiness. And Noah has made it abundantly clear that he feels he belongs with Jenna and Michael." Mr. Harding's face tightened, and he shifted uncomfortably, but he said nothing. The judge continued, addressing both the courtroom and Noah's family. "Family is about love and support, about creating a safe place for children to grow. I believe that Jenna and Michael have provided Noah with more than just a home. They have given him a sense of belonging that is irreplaceable." At that moment, Noah felt Jenna's hand tighten around his, and he looked up to see her smiling through tears. Michael's hand rested on his shoulder, steady and reassuring. Noah's heart swelled with a profound sense of relief and gratitude. His small body filled with an emotion he couldn't fully name but knew was love. But just as hope blossomed within him, a voice from the back of the courtroom shattered the moment. "Your Honor, if I may." It was another attorney, one Noah hadn't noticed before. She stepped forward, holding a file in her hands, her face unreadable. "There's additional information in this file that could impact the decision. It pertains to the history of Noah's biological family." A cold wave of dread swept over Noah. He looked up at Jenna and Michael, seeing the worry etched on their faces. The last thing he wanted was to think about his past, to dredge up memories he had tried so hard to leave behind. But now he felt the weight of that past pressing down on him, threatening to tear apart the life he had built with Jenna and Michael. The judge took the file, his expression cautious. "Thank you, Ms. Davis," he said, glancing at the contents briefly before looking back at Noah's family. "This information will be reviewed thoroughly, and it will be taken into consideration. However, it does not diminish the value of the bond Noah has clearly established with his foster parents." The attorney nodded, stepping back, but the tension in the room remained thick. Noah felt a knot form in his stomach, his fingers tightening around Jenna's. He couldn't shake the feeling that everything he had worked so hard for was slipping through his fingers. The judge looked back at Noah, his expression softer now. "Noah, I want you to know that everything you said today matters. Your words carry weight, and they will be taken into account. For now, we will adjourn until further review. I ask that everyone in this courtroom remembers the courage it took for this young boy to stand up and share his heart." The file contained details about his life before Jenna and Michael, the years he had spent moving between foster homes, the times he had been returned to the system. Each note was like a painful reminder of the loneliness he had endured. But what really caught his attention was a small, faded photograph paper-clipped to the back of the file. It was a picture of a woman he had never seen before, but there was something familiar about her eyes, her smile. Noah stared at the photo, his heart pounding. Was this his birth mother? The woman he had wondered about on countless nights, but had never truly known. He felt a strange mixture of curiosity, sadness, and anger. Why hadn't she kept him? Had she loved him? Had she been forced to let him go, or had she chosen to? Before he could process his emotions, he heard footsteps approaching. Panicking, he quickly placed the file back on the desk and rushed out of the study, his heart racing as he returned to his room. But the image of the woman's face remained etched in his mind, haunting him with questions he was too afraid to ask aloud. Later that night, Jenna found him sitting on his bed, clutching his pillow tightly, his face hidden. She sat down beside him, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Noah, honey, you've been quiet all evening. Is something wrong?" she asked softly, her voice filled with concern. Noah looked up at her, his eyes filled with a vulnerability he rarely allowed anyone to see. I found a picture," he admitted, his voice barely a whisper, "of her." Jenna's face softened, and she pulled him into a gentle hug. "Oh, Noah," she whispered, stroking his hair. "I know this is hard. I can't even imagine how confusing it must be to feel like you're caught between two worlds. But I want you to know that no matter what happened in the past, you are loved here. We are your family." Noah felt tears welling up in his eyes, but he quickly wiped them away, not wanting to appear weak. "I just don't understand why she didn't want me," he murmured, his voice trembling. "Was there something wrong with me?" Jenna's heart broke at his words, and she tightened her embrace. "Noah, you are an incredible, kind, and brave boy. There is nothing wrong with you. Sometimes, people make choices they think are best, even if they don't seem fair. And sometimes, people let go of those they love, because they believe it's the only way to give them a better life." Noah didn't respond, but he let himself lean into her, feeling the warmth of her love surround him. He knew Jenna was right, but the questions in his heart still lingered, like tiny thorns that wouldn't stop pricking at him. The next day, at school, Noah's thoughts were a whirlwind. He felt a strange determination settling over him, a need to understand more, to find closure. At recess, he found himself gravitating toward the school library, where he logged onto a computer and typed in some of the information he had found in the file. He wasn't sure what he was looking for, but he hoped he might uncover some answers. Hours passed, and Noah managed to dig up fragments of information about his biological mother, piecing together a vague picture of her life. She had struggled with poverty, addiction, and other challenges. Slowly, he began to understand that maybe, just maybe, she had let him go because she couldn't give him the life he deserved. In that moment, Noah felt a wave of compassion wash over him. He would never fully understand why his birth mother had made the choices she did, but he knew that her struggles didn't define him. He had a family now, a real family that loved him and wanted him, no matter what anyone else thought. As he closed the computer and left the library, Noah felt a weight lift from his heart. He didn't have all the answers, but he had found a measure of peace within himself, and he knew that whatever the court decided, he had finally made peace with his past, and he was ready to fight for his future with Jenna and Michael by his side. With a renewed sense of strength, Noah was determined to make his voice heard in the next hearing. He wasn't just a child caught between two worlds. He was someone who had found a family, someone who belonged, and he was prepared to stand up and tell the world that he wasn't going anywhere. A stand in the courtroom. The day of the final hearing arrived faster than Noah had anticipated. As he stepped into the courthouse, he was surprised by the surge of emotions swirling within him. Anxiety, hope, and a newfound determination. Jenna and Michael walked on either side of him, their hands resting gently on his shoulders, offering silent support. They had no idea about his late-night search or the revelations he'd uncovered, but he felt stronger knowing he'd faced part of his past. Now, it was time to fight for his future. The courtroom was filled with familiar faces, from social workers to legal advocates. Noah also noticed a few strangers seated in the audience, probably members of the media interested in the case that had generated so much buzz in the community. His stomach tightened at the thought, but he held his head high. He had something to say, and he wasn't going to let fear keep him silent. As they took their seats, Noah caught a glimpse of the state's attorney, Mr. Riddle, who represented the interests of the state. He was the same man who had questioned whether it was appropriate for a black child to be adopted by a white family. Noah remembered the icy look in the man's eyes, and a chill ran down his spine. But this time, he refused to let the fear paralyze him. The judge entered, and the courtroom fell silent. Noah noticed that the judge's gaze softened slightly as he looked at him, almost as if he understood the weight of what the boy was about to carry on his small shoulders. When the judge finally spoke, his voice was measured, careful, and compassionate. "We are here today to determine what is in the best interest of this young man, Noah. This case has sparked significant discussion, and I want to remind everyone that our goal is to ensure Noah's welfare above all else." Mr. Riddle stood up, straightening his tie before he began. His tone was calm but firm as he addressed the judge and the gathered audience. "Your Honor, while it is clear that Mr. and Mrs. Palmer have provided a loving environment for Noah, there are considerations that cannot be ignored. Studies have shown that transracial adoption may present challenges, particularly in terms of identity and cultural understanding." Noah clenched his fists, feeling anger bubble up inside him. He wanted to stand up and shout that love wasn't about skin color, but Jenna's hand on his shoulder kept him grounded. He felt her silent encouragement, urging him to stay strong. Mr. Riddle continued, "We must consider if it is in Noah's best interest to remain with a family that, however well-intentioned, may not be equipped to guide him through the complexities of his identity as a young black man in today's society." Jenna and Michael's faces remained composed, but Noah could see the pain in their eyes. He knew how much they loved him, and it hurt to see their commitment questioned in such a cold and impersonal manner. The judge turned to Jenna and Michael. "Mr. and Mrs. Palmer, would you like to respond?" Michael stood up, his voice steady but filled with emotion. "Your Honor, we understand the concerns raised, but we believe that love and commitment transcend these challenges. We have done everything in our power to ensure that Noah feels loved, safe, and supported. We are committed to learning and growing as a family. We may not have all the answers, but we are willing to seek out resources, educate ourselves, and do whatever it takes to ensure Noah has a positive and healthy sense of identity." Jenna added softly, "Noah has taught us so much about resilience and courage. He is our son in every way that matters, and we want nothing more than to continue giving him the home and family he deserves." The judge nodded thoughtfully, acknowledging their heartfelt words. "Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Palmer, your commitment is evident. However, as part of this process, I would like to hear directly from Noah. Noah's heart skipped a beat. He had known this moment was coming, but now that it was here, he felt his pulse race with nervous energy. He took a deep breath, looking up at Jenna and Michael, who gave him encouraging nods. He stood up slowly, feeling every eye in the room on him. The judge's voice softened. Noah, you are very brave for being here today. You don't have to say anything you're not comfortable with, but if you'd like to share, I am here to listen. Noah glanced around the room, his gaze landing on Mr. Riddle, who regarded him with a look of mild impatience. He turned his attention back to the judge, determined to make his voice heard. Your Honor, he began, his voice wavering slightly before he steadied himself. I know people think I don't belong with Jenna and Michael because we don't look the same. But they are my family. They have given me a home, and they love me for who I am, not just because of how I look. He paused, gathering his thoughts. I know there's a lot I don't understand yet about my history, and maybe I don't know everything about being black. But Jenna and Michael, they don't make me feel different. They make me feel safe, like I belong. They've helped me be proud of who I am. Noah glanced at Mr. Riddle, his gaze unwavering. I've been in other homes before, but it wasn't the same. Jenna and Michael don't just take care of me. They make me feel like I matter. I don't want to leave them. I don't want to go to another family just because of what someone else thinks I need. The courtroom was silent as his words echoed through the air, resonating with the rawness of a child's heart. Noah felt a tear slip down his cheek, but he quickly wiped it away, not wanting anyone to see him cry. He wasn't ashamed, but he wanted to show everyone that he was strong. The judge watched him intently, his expression thoughtful. Thank you, Noah. Your courage is truly inspiring. Noah sat back down, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. He had spoken his truth, and now all he could do was hope that it was enough. As the hearing continued, the atmosphere in the room remained charged with tension. Various people testified about Noah's well-being, character witnesses for Jenna and Michael, and even a child psychologist who emphasized the importance of stability in a child's life. The psychologist's words lingered in the air, speaking to the trauma of constant displacement and the importance of maintaining a loving and supportive environment. Mr. Riddle made one final attempt, bringing up hypothetical scenarios about Noah facing challenges as he grew older. It's not about whether they love him now, he argued. It's about whether they can support him in the years to come, in a world that may treat him differently. Jenna rose to her feet, her voice stronger than Noah had ever heard it. Mr. Riddle, I understand your concerns, but as Noah's mother, I can tell you that we will face any challenge that comes our way. We are committed to giving him the love, guidance, and understanding he needs, no matter what the world throws at us. Our love for him is not conditional, and our support for him is unwavering. Her words hung in the air, resonating with an intensity that left the room silent. Finally, after what felt like hours, the judge cleared his throat, signaling that he was ready to make his decision. Noah's heart pounded as he clutched Jenna's hand tightly, feeling her trembling just as much as he was. The judge's voice was calm, but filled with weight. This case has brought to light many complex and deeply personal issues. At the heart of it, though, is the question of what is best for Noah. It is clear to me that Jenna and Michael Palmer are committed to Noah's well-being, and they have demonstrated a willingness to learn and grow in their role as his parents. He looked directly at Noah, a gentle smile playing on his lips. Noah, I want you to know that your words today were powerful. You have shown us all that family is about more than appearance. It is about love, safety, and belonging. The judge's gaze shifted back to Mr. Riddle. While concerns about Noah's identity and cultural understanding are valid, I believe that these are challenges Jenna and Michael are more than willing to face head-on. Stability, love, and support are paramount, and I find no reason to deny Noah the family he so clearly cherishes. A collective sigh of relief filled the room. Jenna wrapped her arms around Noah. tears streaming down her face as she held him close. Michael joined them, his eyes shining with pride and love. Noah felt a wave of emotion wash over him, a mix of relief, happiness, and the indescribable joy of finally being home. The judge's gavel came down, signaling the end of the hearing. But for Noah, it was just the beginning of a life where he didn't have to worry about being taken away, a life where he was loved unconditionally. As they left the courthouse together, Noah glanced up at Jenna and Michael, his heart filled with gratitude. They were his family, and he was theirs, no matter what anyone else thought. And as they walked into the future together, he knew he would never again feel like he was caught between two worlds. He had found his place, and he was exactly where he was meant to be. The challenges beyond the courtroom. The courtroom decision marked a victorious moment for Noah, Jenna, and Michael, but the challenges they faced did not end there. While they left the courthouse with hearts full of hope and relief, they soon realized that being an unconventional family in a world full of prejudice was a battle that went beyond the legal system. For Noah, it was the beginning of a journey to build his identity within a society that too often viewed him through a narrow lens. As the weeks passed, Noah felt a new sense of security in his life. He no longer feared that he would be taken from his parents, and his days began to feel lighter. He enjoyed simple things, playing soccer with Michael, baking cookies with Jenna, and spending quiet evenings with both of them watching movies or reading together. His room, which had once felt like a temporary place, now felt like home, filled with posters, books, and memories of his new family. However, the outside world wasn't always as kind. One day after school, Noah came home looking somber, his eyes downcast and shoulders slumped. Jenna noticed right away that something was wrong. She set down the book she was reading and beckoned him over to sit beside her on the couch. "Noah, honey, is everything all right?" she asked softly, wrapping an arm around him. Noah hesitated, staring at his hands. "Some kids at school, they said that you're not my real parents, that I don't belong with you and Michael." His voice was barely a whisper, but Jenna could feel the weight of his words, the pain he was trying so hard to hide. Jenna's heart broke hearing this. She had known that Noah might face such challenges, but hearing him express his hurt was devastating. She hugged him tightly, brushing a hand over his hair. "Oh, Noah," she murmured, "I'm so sorry. Kids can say hurtful things, especially when they don't understand. But you belong with us, and we belong with you. That's all that matters." Noah looked up, his eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "But why do they say that? Just because we look different?" Jenna took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "Sometimes people don't understand that family isn't just about looking alike. It's about love, trust, and the memories we make together. People can be afraid of what's different, and they might say things that hurt. But you know what? The love we share is stronger than any words they say." Noah nodded slowly, but the sadness in his eyes lingered. He was only 9, but he was starting to grasp the complexities of race and family, even if he didn't fully understand them. Jenna knew that she and Michael would need to support him in ways they hadn't anticipated, helping him find pride in who he was and in their family, despite the world's narrow perceptions. That evening, Jenna and Michael had a long talk after Noah went to bed. They discussed how they could help Noah feel confident and empowered, even when faced with prejudice. They decided to reach out to a local community organization that offered resources and support for multiracial families. They wanted to make sure Noah had access to role models and mentors who looked like him and understood his experiences. A week later, they attended a community event where families like theirs came together. It was held in a large, bright room filled with laughter and the aroma of delicious food. Noah clung to Jenna's hand at first, his eyes wide as he took in the diversity around him. Families of all shapes, sizes, and colors mingled, sharing stories and laughter. A woman with warm eyes and a radiant smile approached them, introducing herself as Linda, the event coordinator. She knelt down to Noah's level and greeted him with a friendly smile. "Hi, Noah. I heard you're a soccer fan. My son, Jaden, loves soccer too. Maybe you two could kick the ball around." Noah's face lit up, and he nodded shyly, glancing at Jenna for reassurance. She gave him a gentle nudge, encouraging him to join Jaden, a boy with a similar complexion and a bright smile. As the two boys ran off to the field, Jenna and Michael watched, a sense of relief washing over them. Here, Noah didn't have to explain his family. He was surrounded by people who understood and embraced the beauty of their unique bonds. As they mingled with other parents, Jenna and Michael heard stories of the challenges and triumphs that other families faced. Some parents spoke about the struggles of raising children who felt caught between two worlds, while others shared heartwarming moments of acceptance and resilience. For the first time, Jenna felt she wasn't alone. She realized that there was a community willing to support them, to provide guidance and a sense of belonging for Noah. After the event, Noah seemed happier, more confident. He started asking questions about his heritage, about Black history, and about people who had stood up against injustice. Jenna and Michael took him to a local museum, where he learned about the civil rights movement and saw pictures of heroes who looked like him. They wanted him to feel connected to his roots, to understand the strength and courage embedded in his history. One evening, as they were sitting around the dinner table, Noah looked up with a thoughtful expression. "Mom, Dad," he said, his voice soft but steady, "I want to be like those people in the museum. I want to stand up for what's right." Michael reached over, ruffling Noah's hair with a proud smile. "You already are, buddy. Just by being yourself, by being brave, you're showing people that love doesn't have to look a certain way. You're teaching them that family is about the heart, not just the face." Noah smiled, and Jenna's heart swelled with pride. She could see that their journey was far from over, but she knew they would face whatever came their way together. The following months were filled with small but meaningful moments that helped solidify their bond as a family. They faced difficult conversations and sometimes painful realizations, but they also experienced profound growth. Noah learned to stand up for himself, finding strength in his identity and pride in his family. Jenna and Michael attended workshops and community gatherings, continuing to educate themselves on how to support Noah in a world that didn't always understand their family. One evening, after a particularly difficult day at school where some kids had teased him, Noah came home feeling defeated. Jenna noticed his mood immediately and knelt beside him, holding his hands. "Noah, remember that you are loved beyond measure," she said, her voice filled with warmth and assurance. "People might say things that hurt, but that doesn't change who you are. You are kind, brave, and amazing just the way you are." Michael joined them, his hand resting on Noah's shoulder. "And remember, we're always here for you. We're your family, and we'll face everything together. We're so proud of you, Noah." Noah looked up at them, his eyes bright with tears. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you, Dad. I'm glad you're my family." In that moment, the three of them shared a quiet, powerful understanding. It was a reminder that love was a force stronger than any prejudice, any doubt. They had created a home that defied convention, a family that was bound by more than just appearances. And while the road ahead might still hold challenges, they were ready to face it together, stronger than ever. In the days that followed, Noah carried that sense of love and security with him. He faced his schoolmates with a new confidence, understanding that their words didn't define him. He began to share his story with others, hoping to teach them that family is about the heart, not the color of one's skin. He became a quiet leader, someone others could look to for kindness and courage. For Jenna and Michael, watching Noah grow into himself was the greatest gift they could have asked for. They knew the journey had not been easy, and there would still be hard days ahead. But they also knew that they had built something unbreakable, something that no one could take away. They had built a family, bound by love and strengthened by resilience. And as they looked toward the future, they knew they would continue to grow together, facing the world as a family that had overcome every obstacle in their path. Strength in unity. Months passed, and Noah continued to grow into a confident young boy, shaped not only by the love of his parents, but by the strength he had found within himself. Life settled into a new normal. Each day, Noah's understanding of his own identity and the world around him deepened, shaped by the love and support of Jenna and Michael. But even as their bond grew stronger, the family continued to face reminders of the societal prejudice that had shadowed them from the start. One crisp autumn morning, as the leaves painted the neighborhood in hues of amber and red, Jenna received an unexpected letter in the mail. The envelope was stamped with the seal of a local advocacy group, a group that had taken an interest in Noah's adoption case after his courageous courtroom declaration. Intrigued, Jenna sat at the kitchen table, carefully tearing open the envelope, with Michael leaning over her shoulder in curiosity. The letter invited the family to speak at an upcoming event focused on raising awareness about foster care and the unique challenges faced by multiracial families. Jenna's heart raced as she read the words, a mixture of excitement and apprehension blooming within her. She had never imagined herself or her family in the spotlight. Their journey, though marked by trials, had been deeply personal, a story they lived quietly and fiercely. But now, an opportunity had presented itself, an opportunity to share their experience, to show others the transformative power of love that transcends color and background. Later that evening, Jenna and Michael sat Noah down to discuss the letter. They explained that the event would allow them to share their story, to help others understand that family isn't about looking alike, but about love and unity. Noah listened quietly, his young face thoughtful as he absorbed their words. After a long pause, he looked up at them with a determined glint in his eyes. "I want to do it," he said softly but resolutely. "I want people to know that families like ours are real, and that we belong together. Maybe if people hear our story, they'll stop saying that we shouldn't be a family." Jenna felt a surge of pride as she watched her son speak with such conviction. She saw the same brave boy who had stood up in court, unafraid to share his truth. But now his strength had grown, fortified by the love and support that surrounded him. She and Michael exchanged a glance, and in that unspoken moment, they knew this was the right thing to do. They would stand together as a family, using their story to challenge the prejudice that had once tried to tear them apart. The day of the event arrived, and the auditorium was filled with families, social workers, community leaders, and advocates. Jenna, Michael, and Noah sat together at the front, a panel of other families seated beside them. The room was filled with an expectant hum, the air thick with anticipation. As Noah looked out over the sea of faces, he felt a nervous thrill. He had spoken in court before, but this was different. Here, he was surrounded by people who wanted to listen, to understand, to learn. When it was their turn to speak, Jenna began by sharing the beginning of their journey, how she and Michael had met Noah, how they had fallen in love with his bright spirit and fierce resilience. She spoke of the obstacles they had faced, the prejudice they had encountered, and the unwavering commitment they had to Noah, no matter what challenges came their way. As she spoke, her voice quivered with emotion, and she paused to hold back tears, looking to Michael for support. Michael took her hand, his voice steady as he continued the story. He shared the moments of doubt, the sleepless nights wondering if they were doing the right thing, and the constant fear of losing their son to forces beyond their control. But he also spoke of the joy, the laughter, and the profound love that Noah had brought into their lives, transforming them in ways they could never have anticipated. Finally, Noah took a deep breath and stepped forward to the microphone, his small frame standing tall. He looked out at the audience, his gaze unwavering, and began to speak. "When I first met Jenna and Michael, I didn't know what a real family felt like," he began, his voice steady but soft. "I was scared, and I didn't think anyone would ever love me for who I am. But they did. They loved me, and they gave me a home where I feel safe and happy." He paused, glancing back at his parents, drawing strength from their reassuring smiles. "Some people think that because we look different, We can't be a real family. But that's not true. Jenna and Michael are my mom and dad, and they love me just like any parents would love their child. As he continued, his voice grew stronger, filled with the certainty of someone wise beyond his years. Love isn't about what people look like. It's about what's in their hearts. Jenna and Michael showed me that, and I want everyone to know that families come in all different ways. No one should ever feel like they don't belong just because they don't look like everyone else. The room fell silent. Every face turned toward Noah, captivated by the simplicity and power of his words. Jenna felt her heart swell with pride, tears streaming down her cheeks as she watched her son speak his truth with such courage. Michael placed a hand on her shoulder, his own eyes glistening with emotion. When Noah finished, a ripple of applause spread through the auditorium, growing into a standing ovation. People wiped away tears, inspired by the bravery of the young boy who had stood before them and shared his heart. Jenna and Michael stood beside him, embracing him as they joined the crowd in applause, a united front against the prejudices that had tried to tear them apart. After the event, people approached them with words of encouragement, admiration, and gratitude. Families shared their own stories, social workers thanked them for bringing awareness, and advocates expressed hope that their story would inspire change. Noah beamed with pride, basking in the warmth of the support and validation he had received. Over the following weeks, their story spread. Local news stations picked up the story, interviewing the family and highlighting the challenges multiracial families face. Social media was abuzz with messages of support, and letters poured in from people across the country who had been touched by their courage. Families like theirs felt seen, and many thanked them for speaking out, for showing that love could overcome any barrier. The newfound attention came with its own set of challenges. Not everyone understood or accepted their story, and negative comments occasionally surfaced. But Jenna, Michael, and Noah stood firm, anchored by the love they shared and the support of their community. They had built a foundation of resilience, one that could withstand the scrutiny and prejudice of others. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, Jenna reflected on how far they had come. She looked at Noah, who was flipping through a photo album, his face alight with memories of their journey together. She felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude for the family they had become, for the battles they had fought, and for the love that had carried them through. "Noah," she said softly, breaking the comfortable silence, "thank you for being brave. You've taught us so much about love and strength." Noah looked up, a shy smile tugging at his lips. "I'm just glad I have you and Dad," he replied. "You make me feel like I can do anything." Michael wrapped his arm around both of them, pulling them close. "Together, we can do anything," he said, his voice filled with conviction. As they sat there, wrapped in each other's warmth, they knew that their story was far from over. There would be more challenges, more moments of doubt and fear. But they also knew that they would face them together, a family united by love, strengthened by resilience, and determined to inspire others to see beyond the surface, to embrace the boundless possibilities of love. And in that moment, as the world outside faded away, they understood that they were not just surviving. They were thriving, building a legacy of love that would endure for generations to come.